Good morning, Laura van Geest. You are the chair of the executive board of the Dutch Authority for the Financial Markets. Thank you for joining us in this interview about trust
To be here.
for the annual conference of ELP on October 6th. What does trust mean to you as a supervisor? Do you operate from trust or from distrust?
Well, we operate from trust, but we're not naive, I would say. We know that people tend to do the right thing or want to do the right thing, but of course, we need to be sure that they know what they need to do. So we always talk about knowing, willing, and able. And now, if people are not willing to act, we have to intervene. But we also can make sure that people that are willing to act are able to act because they know what we are expecting from them. And we also make sure that they've got insights in our view on the regulation. So they're able to, they know what you have to do, they're able to do the right thing. And then if they want to do the right thing, things will move along nicely. Now, on the other hand, we are not, like I said, we're not naive. Not everyone is willing. And sometimes the situation could be also so tempting that you might fall from the right path. And on those occasions, of course, we also have regulations, and then the AFM is trying to make sure that you uphold those regulations.
Okay.
So we operate from trust. We're not a police state, but we're not naive.
Okay. That sounds like a gentle police woman. Is that correct?
I wouldn't say so, but I think in the Netherlands, a lot of the financial institutions have learned the lesson that duty of care is important and that you have to operate in the proper manner, because otherwise your license to operate will be at risk. So I think we have had our moments in the last couple of decades, and I think many of the financial sector parties are aware that they need to do the right thing, I would say. But of course, this was a result of enforcement actions and also backlash from the public at large.
Yeah. You say knowing, willing, enabling. Does it mean that your main tasks as a supervisor are giving information and nudging?
No, I think our main task as a supervisor is to look for the risks, try to understand the risks, and then act if that's necessary. But I do think if you, for instance, think about new legislation. So, for instance, we now have a whole flood of like the SFDR that focuses on sustainability issues. This is new legislation. Not everything is clear. And on those occasions, we don't think it's the right thing to say on day one, well, you didn't uphold the letter of the law. Here we are with our fines. That wouldn't be fair.
Yeah.
Those occasions, we've basically said, please be aware, new legislation is coming. Please prepare. And yes, we're going to look what you've done, but we will definitely look more at whether you've made attempts than whether you you already got a full A. But on other occasions, so it depends a little bit from field to field. So in new legislation, willing parties, you basically try to nudge them in the right direction or inform them. But there are also other areas where people just need to be restrained. So sometimes people like to offer investments that are really bad. And then we are not really lenient or kind. We have very clear rules on what type of products are basically allowed, to what type of products you can basically sell to which type of customer. And then if you don't uphold the law, we are there with fines, and they are not gentle, I would say.
Okay.
So it's a mix.
Yeah. And you say the majority of people is good willing. What do you consider the majority? How many people are have the intention to deceive or to make decisions that are bad for others?
Well, I'm not quite, I can't give you a precise figure, but I think in the Netherlands, most people are willing to abide by the law. I mean, we're not a police state. The AFM is only 650 people large. I mean, if everyone was doing the bad thing, things would be quite different. I think the other thing we've done in analysis, of course, that if people are tempted to do the wrong thing, there is legislation to prevent it. And then if you're clear in your norms and say, well, this is allowed, this isn't allowed, and you kind of avoid, make it less possible or less attractive to do the bad thing, then of course you also stimulate that you get the right results.
Yeah.
For instance, in analysis, it's forbidden to sell certain financial products. It's forbidden to offer certain products to clients in a vulnerable position. And these rules have all come about because things went wrong on an earlier occasion. So we learn, and then of course firms think, oh, well, if this is not allowed, then we're not going to do this. But still, there are, of course, always people who don't want to uphold the law and are really eager to get rich quick and not in a fair way, you know. And that's of course where we have a role. And I think, of course, we are a public body. We are not like the police, so we also have a limited abilities. But on occasion, we also look at a file and then we hand it over to the judicial authorities and say, well, this is definitely beyond our scope of activities and enforcement opportunities.
Yeah. You say you are looking for the risks. Where do you see the major risks in the system?
Well, there are always risks if there's a conflict of interest, or when it's really easy to make money, or where, for instance, the seller has a lot of knowledge and the buyer hasn't that much knowledge.
Can you give an example?
Well, for instance, if you are I think in most financial products, the financial institution is very well versed on how the product works, for what purposes this is appropriate, and who would be best placed to buy it. I think a lot of your average financial consumer is not really well versed on those issues. So you have to make sure that people that are in the know don't take advantage of people who are less well versed. They don't understand it as well. They also tend not to have they don't think it's a lot of fun to, so people like to spend time on buying the kitchen. They don't like to spend time on looking at the small print on the loan that they need to buy the kitchen. So there's, I say, so they don't know technically, they don't have there are behavioral insights that tell us they will not look at it. And sometimes financial products, we buy it in day one, but the full effect might be there in 10 years down the road. So there's also a lag. So even if they focus, they probably focus on the here and now and less for the long term. Yeah. And then of course the financial institute sells this product every day, and most consumers buy for instance, a mortgage. If you buy one once, twice in your lifetime, so you're not really trained as well. So there's a big gap in the abilities of the financial institution and of course of the consumer, and we have to make sure that the financial institutions don't give in to the opportunity to take advantage of it, because of course financial institutions are there to make a profit, and there's nothing wrong with it as long as it's done in a fair way.
I think we are seeing an erosion of trust on many levels in society, between citizens and politics, within organizations. Do you experience that erosion of trust in the work you do? And if so, in which way?
Well, of course, you see there's a lot of debate in the Netherlands on trust between society at large and politics. And of course, if you're part, and I'm not a politician, obviously, but if you're part of the state, people find it difficult to make a difference, I would say. So I think this is something we have to think about it, even though we're not immediately affected as yet. But I think it's useful to think, well, not to think, well, I'm authority. People will just say, of course, Laura. You need to be you need to be aware that this is not a safe asset. You can lose it. So you have to invest in keeping that trust. And I think things we do is to be very transparent on what we do. We are always willing to explain what we do. I think we always also try to look in what is happening in society to make sure that we are abreast with developments. So these are the things that we can do. I think you also need to be willing to talk to people who don't have the same view as you. So that's also something that's important to do. So I think it used to be, I think, like academics, but also authority supervisors might have been more into the ivory tower, and I think they have to come down and interact with society.
And what does the interacting with society mean for you? What kind of parties do you talk to, apart from the parties that you supervise, like the banks and audit firms and what have you?
Well, of course, we are in we have direct contact with the firms themselves. We have contact with their the organizations that that represent themselves, that represent those financial institutions. We also have contact with politics and policy makers, both within the Netherlands, but also abroad, because a lot of the legislation is being drawn up outside. And of course, if people, so recently there was an NGO that wanted to talk to us, well, we received them.
Okay.
So it's a combination of things, but I think it starts with being aware there's more than your own circle and your own circle of interest, or your own circle of direct, your naturally ideas, of course, to talk to those that are under you, that you supervise. But there's a broader arena, and I think you have to be aware of that. Okay. And that's what we basically do. Journalists, of course, also a way to deal. We have roundtables, so you can only be in your own office and send out paper, and you can interact in all kinds of ways with the institutions you supervise and society at large.
Yeah. What would be the biggest contribution, apart from the things, if there is something, apart from the things you are already mentioning, that you can do in your position to contribute to trust in society?
Well, I think the AFM is a financial supervisor, and I think if the financial system isn't working properly, I think that's a big hit to trust. So if I think of the financial crisis of 2000, 2008 and 2009, there was a great recession. People got hurt because a lot of people lost their jobs. I think that's not good for trust. So I think the first thing I should do as a financial supervisor is to do my job well, and to make sure that the financial system works, stays in place, remains sound and stable, and also fair. I think so it has to be there and it has to be fair. People shouldn't feel that they're being robbed or lose out in the system. So I think that's the thing that's important for us. And then, of course, we have to look carefully around what is happening outside. So in this particular period, for instance, cryptos have come up. Cryptos are not under our supervision, but we do worry. So we don't only look at what's really inside our legal mandate, but if we see new things happening that we think, oh, well, if we don't look out, people can get hurt. Well, we use the pulpit, I would say. We talk to people, we warn, we say, well, be careful, don't do it. We monitor that. I think that's also something that we can do. Closer to, not the mandate, but close to our mandate, something that we can do. And then, of course, being just transparent and honest in what you're doing. It shouldn't be a black box what the supervisor is doing. You have to be able to explain and be willing to explain and enjoy explaining. I think that's the things that we can do.
I think you've contributed to the transparency by doing this interview. I thank you very much for that, and hopefully see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to be here.